So today in Command Users, we're going to spend time on the Opportunities applet. And I also want to go back and review just a little bit about tags because we created a smart plan this morning in Business Builders to send out that link to send for free COVID tests. And the point came up that it's helpful to have your people completely segregated by tags. So I just want to present that one more time so you can see the tag list. And I'm going to share this screen to review it and ask if there are any questions about this and even any qualms or any thoughts about doing something a little differently. Whatever you have in mind, go ahead and let me know. Have you used the tag system? And does anybody?
I don't know where to. So, like when we do it together, then it's great. And then a couple of days later, I go back and I can't figure out anything. So I have no idea how you even create a tag.
Okay, I will show you that because it's very simple.
Of course.
There are two ways to do it, actually. And I do it both ways. It depends on the situation. If you're ready to put your comprehensive list of tags into Command, I suggest you do it through Settings. If you're doing one by one tags, you can do it right on the contact card. And it allows you to create a custom tag right there, Jen, and that's the easiest way to do it. So I'll switch my share screen. Let's talk about this system, because systematizing your tags will help you in the long run. Is there any question about this system or any other system?
Do we have a copy of this?
You should have. And unless you haven't been on the receiving end, I have sent it out to a lot of people, and I will send it to you, Cal.
Thank you.
Does everybody think they have it or no? Everybody but
Sorry,
Cal.
have what?
This list that you're looking at, the contact list.
I don't have it.
I don't
even know what it is. What is it?
You see where it has the red. So I'll back up one more step. So you have options. Barbara needs it too. Okay, so I'll send it to all of you all. And Marion, do you have it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right.
I started something, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I'll send it to all of you all. So I've broken it out by categories, and by the colors that are available to you on Command. So the colors are white with a blue outline, red, orange, yellow, teal, and then there's a blue and a purple and a black. And the categories that I've used, and you can see them across the top here: vendors, red is real estate, so it's all different kinds of agents. Orange is lead source. Yellow is my miscellaneous category, where I just kind of put things that need to be edited. Teal is the DTD2. That's how you group your sphere of influence by 2 letters of the alphabet for each week. Blue is whatever smart plan they're on. Purple is what kind of client are they? Are they a nurture? Are they an active? Or are they a past? Are they a raving fan? Are they in my VIP group? Or are they family? And then black is talking about when I anticipate for them to do business, or did I call them in my Q1 calls? Did I call them in my Q2 calls? And I changed that tag after I call them and move that around so I know if I've touched them or not. So those are the categories. I will send those to you to work with. Now, there's nothing sacred about them. And yet it helps to organize your thoughts.
Debbie,
And yeah. Mhm.
with the DTD2s, how do you, I'll ask that question another time.
Okay, all right. And let me just turn that off. Let me turn off my sound here if I can. Okay. Then what I want to show you is going to be on this desktop. And I'm going to go into Command again so I can have another tab open. And just quickly show you the creation of these and how you get to the settings to do the global creation.
Yeah, I want to do the global.
Okay. All right, so you'll go up here where your name is, click on that, and it drops down to settings. You see that?
Mhm.
Click on the settings. And it will open up a screen.
Will Command ever move faster than this?
I'll tell you where it moves fast is on your phone. It's worth the agony online on your laptop. And mine goes slower when we're on Zoom. There's no question about that. But on your phone, it's like lightning. It's amazing.
Okay.
And I'll show you what I've been doing. One of the reasons that you want to spend some time in this tedious task of tagging your people is because it makes it so easy for you to dial through and really do some great prospecting using just your phone and using the Command app. It's phenomenal. So when your settings open up, here we are. I'm going to just mute you just gently. Okay, you can listen. So when your settings open up, go to contacts and drop that screen down and then go to contact tags. And when that opens up, you get this screen, which will show you what tags you have. And you have two different kinds. You have system tags, which are gray and very generic. And then you have custom tags, and you go here to create tags. Here you can see all the colors I just showed you in that list. And let's just say I'm going to make a test tag for 36 touch. And I'm going to call it a smart plan. And that in my system, this is the color for my smart plans. I click on that, and I have a new tag. And you can sort these alphabetically. So you see I went from 1 to Z, and now they're down, that's that way. And then you can also see them in larger groups. So if I open up 100 groups, beginning with Z, I can find my test tag for 36 touch. There it is. And if you screw up, you can always change anything about it. Oh, I didn't want it to be that. I want it to just say tag. And so there it is. Now it's fixed. Now I fixed it. You can always make changes. And if you make changes, the changes will happen on the contacts that you have that tag set to. Okay. That's how you do it globally. And here's my recommendation. Before you start this, think about what tags you need. And you may want a bunch of tags. You may want to keep your tagging simpler. Whatever works for you works. Okay, any questions about that? I'm going to go back now to my contacts and show you how to do a one-off creation. And once you've created that tag, it's in your settings. But you can do it right on one contact. So once this pops up, come along. Oh my goodness. There it is. There they all are. Okay, so now I want to create something for A1 carpet. So I go into the A1 carpet contact. I click the edit bar, the edit pencil. And the edit or add screen shows up. And then I scroll to the tags. And I put in carpet. Supplier. Okay, so I've got carpet supplier, and I'm going to, you see where it offers you to create a custom tag. I click on that and I get the same choices. Now this one, I just want to be a clear tag because that's where I put all my vendors. And then I go add, and now I have a carpet supplier as a tag. You just have to save it here, and it's also in your library of tags. So you have two ways to do it, Jen. Okay, easy, either way works and allows that, allows the creation. Any other questions about tags before we move on? And then we're going to go right into opportunities. Anybody with a question?
Actually, I have something.
Yes, go ahead.
You have to have a car. Sorry, I could have just gone on because I'm in the car dealership.
You're very garbled. You're very garbled. Can you get clearer?
Hold on once. Oh, hold on. Oh gosh.
Okay. You want to try again? Okay, let's, when you're in a little better spot, go ahead and try again. Okay, so we're on the home screen. This is the home screen for the opportunities. You see the handshake, that's where you get to opportunities. Now, who knows what you're going to be doing in opportunities? What's the main thrust of opportunities?
Categorizing them?
Categorizing opportunities. Yeah, so grouping your opportunities by transaction type, right? Opportunities are going to be transactions, right? And pipeline. So it's a great spot to keep your pipeline. You can see in the cultivate stage, we have a number of people who are kind of in that on deck circle, waiting for attention. And one of the things that I like about opportunities is it helps you not, I have to put your little faces on the other screen. It helps you not lose track of people who are as long out as 12 months. I don't put anybody in the pipeline except for people who I think should be transacting within the next 12 months. And then it gives me a place to find them, look at them, and communicate with them. So let's look at listings. You have three different categories. You have listings, sellers, buyers, and then you have leases. And the leases are both landlords and tenants. And in order to, let's just open that up for the fun of it so you can see how you manage this. If you open up an appointment for, it starts with, you see up here where it says type. In the leases, you have one of those bars and both of the sides of the transaction are held in that one bar. So in the type, if you have a landlord, you need to choose landlord. And then you'll put whoever is in there. So let's just create an opportunity, and I will create an opportunity for my landlord, who is going to be Robert. My friend Robert McCain in here. Okay, he's the landlord. And the lease on his property is going to be $3,000 a month. The commission is going to be 8 point, oh, look at that. It wants it to be $1 amount. The commission is going to be $1,500. And we are at the appointment stage. We're scheduling an appointment. So I just created an opportunity. What did I have to have in command before I could create an opportunity?
The contact name.
You have to have contact in there. You have to start with a contact. You can't go in here and say, let's go back to the sales pipeline. If I went back to the sales pipeline and I went in here and I just went, okay, I want to create an opportunity, and it's going to be a listing opportunity, and it's going to be my friend, who do I not have in here? Oh no, he's in there. I know he's not in here. Oh, look at that. He is. There, no Donald Jones. If I don't have the contact in there and I try to create it, I have no options. You have to start with a contact name. Questions about that? All right, so look across the top here. I'm going to go to me. And isn't that fascinating? No, I can't go to me. I have to stay in my team because I've put all my business in there. All right. We have the phases across the top of cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed. There are different activities in each of these phases. And then you have within the phases, you have stages. So in cultivate, you can change these stage names. And here, you see up here where it says edit stages. If you want to call your cultivate stage A, B, C, D, you can do that. If you want to call them now, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you can do that. Whatever you want to call your stages across the top here, you can make it the way you want it to be. You see, I have different categories for sooner or later, the 6 to 12 months, the 90 days to 180 days, which is 3 to 6 months, the 1 to 3 months, and then the this months. But this you can change. And the way you do that is you click on edit stages and you just change the names. So if I want to just call this month, done. Now it's just changed. It asks you to put what you think the probability is on this. I think you can edit that. Yes, you can edit that. So in the closest up, you can make 25, 25, 25. You can make that whatever you choose it to be. I make it less of a probability, obviously, if it's farther out. So I have 10, 10, 20, and 25. Until they get into my actual actives, I don't count on those transactions. So, and then you have checklists within each of these stages to remind you to be in touch with them. So this is make a weekly call, just be on top of that. Okay, so those are, then we're going to go back to the listings. Where it gets interesting is when you have an active piece of business, because each of these stages in these phases, it has a lot of activities to do. And so you create what your system is to track the business that you're doing, whatever your plan is to communicate with your sellers at various stages. When I have a new listing, this is the list that I follow. Meet the photographer, post the listing on the multiple listing, order the sign, register with showing time. When that's when it's a kept appointment. Kept and close. And now for active listing, we have all of these guys. Call the seller to review, label the photos, do the neighborhood call around, schedule the open house, all of the reminders for the things that you need to do. And that's found here. And that's those are the activities for the various stages. You move your,
You turned off, so it's not a problem.
It's okay, honey, I'm okay.
you move your contacts through the stages easily. By just dragging and dropping.
Can I get
Okay,
some more?
sweetheart.
This guy has gone to a closed stage.
Sure, I thought I.
And what you have to do is edit his stage on in his details and confirm here. He's under contract. I'm going to mark him closed, and then it's going to tell me confirm your close date. That's correct. And that's all correct. And then when you change that and you go back to the listing, the opportunity list, you see it changed itself into the closed status. It went from under contract right into closed. And now I have a different set of things that I need to do for this. So I changed the MLS to sold. I've done that. I've sent the note to the selling agent, and I have not done these two things. I have not sent a thank you for your business to the client, and I haven't asked the client for a review. So I need to keep that live until I do that. But those are my reminders of things that I need to do. And I want to do that before the end of the month, because at the end of the month, after you've closed a transaction, your opportunity goes off the screen. It's in a closed category.
You asked me to send me a picture of.
And you don't keep
Can't-
it live right here in front of you. It will show up, you see across here where it says all opportunities. You can always see the opportunity when you go here. I want to show you one of the things that I think is super helpful, and it's documents. So let's go here to something that's just an active listing. And we're on the opportunity card. This is all the details of the listing. It gives us the asking price. It gives us the commission rate, gives us when it was listed, blah, blah, blah. When we go to documents, I love the documents view, because this is where you keep all of your documents. And you have a default screen that tells you the documents that are required by your MCA. You see this? Required, required, required. The agency disclosure, the listing agreement, the MLS data sheet, property disclosure, field card, and then lead disclosure depending on its age, inclusion, exclusion, and you can do a couple of things on this screen. You can go right here and just open up the listing agreement in that field. And when you use that field, that's just a blank document. I use these if I need to print a document really fast. I use that screen to just come in here and pull the documents that I need and print them right here. You just click on that and it will create a print screen for you, and you can turn it into paper right there. And the thing is, you can count on these documents to be up to date for you. So I think it's the easiest way to get two documents. Any questions about that? Does anybody use them that way?
I do.
Don't you love that?
I do.
It makes it just so simple. And the other thing is, if you have, I'm going to go back to the pipeline and go to an appointment. And I'll just open these guys up. We have not listed this house yet. I was just on the phone with him, so I don't have any documents. Oh, I do. I have a field card. I pulled the field card up and put it in. If you see blue here, that means the document is in place. So I've pulled their field card and put it into the opportunity. And so there's that. But if I'm doing a presentation on Zoom, this is where I come to go over the documents. So I'm in the listing section here. You see over here on the left, you have different phases, the different phases. It's listed, under contract, and the documents will change in the different phases, and then closed, and you have yet different documents yet. You have the closing invoice request right there in the closed section. So you have all the phases of the transaction right here, where you can find different documents. But if I'm talking to somebody right up front for the listing, I just go over a couple of documents with them on the Zoom meeting. I always start with the agency disclosure, pull that up, walk through that with them, do that explanation, and then go to the listing agreement. And we run through all of the details on the listing agreement. It's not filled out, and this is not where you fill it out. You fill it out in Docusign, but it allows you to introduce the client to the same documents and come to your terms, and then they can sign it electronically because you've had the consultation with them on the Zoom. I love that piece. Anybody have any experiences that they want to share with this, or anything, other comments?
The thing I struggle with most is the categories, because as I'm going across, a lot of times I have gone into Dotloop. I have to admit, I've done it there and then just kind of downloaded everything into Command. But I oftentimes get stuck with regard to the different categories. Like I want to be able to put more phases into the top line. And it's not something I find that I'm able to do with ease.
So no, that you have a few things that are fixed, but I'll show you where you have flexibility, Barbara.
Okay.
And I'm going to go back into my listing because I know that I just added a bunch of stuff here.
Yes, there, yes.
Okay, so this, oops. Oh yeah, this is right. This is correct. Lone Town. So Lone Town. We're going to go to the documents for Lone Town. You can see that over here, all of these are blue. So I've uploaded all the listing documents. So this is, I'm in the listing group, right? I'm just in the listing. See that right there?
Yep.
And I'm going to show the listing document that is here. Is it going to have a seller signature and a buyer signature, or just a seller signature?
Sellers.
And when it pops up, that's exactly what it's going to say. Okay, so this is that. This is the coming soon addendum and the agency addendum. Oh, and look at that. This went up in one fell swoop. Okay, so there's that. That has all of that in it. Okay. Which one did I click? This is the listing renewal. So this is the updated one. This is the most recent with the new sales price. So I've got both my original and I've got my listing renewal. Now look over here on the left, Barbara. I've got a bunch of stuff that doesn't fit into any categories here. So these are custom folders. So you can open up and create a custom folder. And you can see, for example, we did a water test and we have a water proposal. You may want to put any inspections that you've done over here. I have town hall documents and owner documents that I want to have access to, but they muck up the flow of the actual transaction. So I create a custom folder, enter a name for a custom folder, and I'm going to just put market update history. Create the folder. And then when you open that folder, it says add a document, and it allows you to choose a document. Let's just say this is going to be other because I said market history. And it's not something that I already have. I'm just going to call it market stats. And then you can pull it from your computer or Docusign, or you can take it out of another custom folder. And if it's in Docusign, if you scroll down, you can select, let's just select that for the fun of it, and add that document. And now in my market history folder, when I open that up over here, I have a short sale disclosure. And I can pop that into Docusign for her to sign it. Oop, I don't need to do that. All right.
Well,
Here's
there's a lot of flexibility.
Well, there is flexibility. So, and what I do with this, for right or for wrong, if I have received offers, I keep a folder for each of the offers that I have with all of the paperwork until they become accepted. And then I have them sign the documents, usually through Docusign. And here's how you get to Docusign. You know that, right? You just go to the transaction in Docusign. And then you can go back and forth with Docusign without having to print anything out or scan anything. If you get the documents done in Docusign and signed in Docusign, you can move them back into Command without going out. That's a different class. I don't want to go off of opportunities,
Is
but
that new?
say it again. Say it again.
Is that a new feature?
No, it's not really new. It gets better and better is what I will say. It does get better and better. And we can add a
I have a
Docusign.
bad connection now. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, that's okay. We can add a Docusign class after the fact. So let's go back to the main document screen. And I'm going to go to under contract because you'll see there are different documents that are available here. Here we had an offer that was accepted. And from that, we can go to offers and commissions. And, oh, I already did this. So this was entered as an offer. You can add a new offer because that one didn't work. And I'm going to put this in with a name. I think initial offer is a little too broad. Because sometimes you have to have more than one offer before you get to a closing table, right? So I'm going to put Grassinger offer. And the way you create this gives the MCA the opportunity to process the transaction. So this came in there. This proposes a close date of March 31st. I can just put the parties in here. I don't put a lot of detail in about the buyer if I'm representing the seller. I have the seller information, that the party that I'm representing, I put the full information in for. This is an interesting one. He's an unrepresented buyer. So funny. Okay, and then we're going to put the terms in. And so he is a cash buyer. He's putting $600,000 in, no earnest money, none of that. And then we just do and then that's it. That's all you need to do to submit that offer. Then to do commissions, you have to, it has to be an accepted offer. And I'm not going to accept either of these offers right now. That I can show you that differently. Has anybody done a commission through opportunities?
Yes.
And compare it to green sheets.
Oh, it's much easier.
Thank you.
Makes-
That's
it
all I
makes
needed
much
to
more
hear.
sense.
Yes, correct. It's much easier. It's just a breeze. And it's an immediate connection with your MCA, which is wonderful. Okay. Any questions through all of that good stuff? Are we good?
I'm gonna sign off, but thank you, Debbie.
Okie dokie.
Yes, thank you.
Where else do we want to go with this? And nobody has a question? Let me see if I can do this and give you a little bonus today. Does everybody feel like they will be able to use, how do I do this? Yes. Feel like you're able to use the opportunities? Are you comfortable with them?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Cool. No, I think the system is really great. Oh, you know what I wanted to show you? Has anybody been sending out? Are you kidding me? I'm gonna unshare this. Has anybody been sending out emails through command and getting responses?
So you actually did it twice yesterday in terms of don't just prospect, but market too. And especially with regard to the sending out mail. I can prospect, but then I don't market. And it's like I'm spinning my wheels. So that was really helpful. So
excellent. Yeah, you gotta do both. You gotta do both. Achievers do both. People who make money in real estate, they do both. John.
I wanted to touch on the topic of it's not our database's job to stay top of mind to us. It's also not their obligation to use us. They have no obligation to use us at all. And people think that, oh, we've been friends. Oh, we got into high school together. Oh, XYZ, whatever reason it may be. And it's like, yeah, that's great and all, but everyone, when they go shopping, they typically want whatever's best for them. And what's best for them might not always be you. So it's like, unless you prove to them that you are the best for them, it's like, don't expect any of your friends or any of your, like, not your close friends, but any of your friends that are like not really your friends, but kind of your friends. Don't expect any of them to come to you.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you John Mendes. Mic drop. We're done.
About to say the same thing.
Right?
1,000% agree with that. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Right. It's 100% true. And here's the tag on to what John just said. Please recognize you are not entitled to anything. Nothing. Zip. Zero. Life entitles you to nothing. Your real estate license entitles you to nothing. You got to earn it. You got to work. Right? What was it Thomas Edison who said, funny thing about opportunity is that it shows up in overalls and looks like work? Or some version of that. I might have actually got that one right. It was something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Donna, go ahead.
Yeah, so what John just said is like absolutely brilliant. So don't get your feelings hurt either if they choose somebody else. Just realize that you didn't earn it. But what I also wanted to add on to what Erica said, and there is no worse feeling in the world than having one of your friends say, "Oh, we just sold our house. You're in real estate?" Oh, or worse, this is what hurts my feeling. "You're still doing that?" So they kind of remembered, but yeah, So in terms of, so Rick just said, or they remember you as something else, Tommy's mom, or, in your other job or whatever. So be really careful, be mindful about how you do show up, how you show up in your emails, how you show up in your marketing, your postcards, whatever you're sending them. It should be about real estate. Something that shows that you actually know what you're doing and not just I sold another house. That's great. But the equity analysis we've been talking about, the market stats, be sending stuff like that. Do not send the card. Well, you can if you want. But do something more than just remind them when they turn their clocks back or give them the latest brownie recipe. Give them stuff that's related to how you want them to view you as a market expert.
Yeah, and I put it in the chat as Donna was talking on social media, really important, right? If you are a big social media person and your sphere are big on social media and you love motorcycles and the only thing you ever put out on social media is about motorcycles, right? Then people remember you for your love of motorcycles. If instead what you do is recognize that through your business, you can help the community, and perhaps through your business, you're going to sponsor a charity ride, right, through the local Harley-Davidson chapter. Now you're combining a love of your motorcycles with a business conversation so that people start to see both sides of you, right? Because what Donna said is crazy important. It's not about I sold another house, I sold another house, I sold another house, especially on social media. It's about the business persona that you create, showing value, showing people that you're coming from contribution, giving to the community, doing cool things, and perhaps marrying that with something that you also happen to have a love of. Make sense? It's complicated and simple all at the same time, right? Complicated and simple all at the same time. All right, so Tony, did you have one more thing or is your hand still up from before? Okay, got it. I am removing your hand. So we are going to jump real quick into Power Session 3. Would it be helpful if I put the link back in the chat? So for those of you who are looking for the materials and don't have the link is now in the chat again for you to grab Power Session 3. And I'd like you to look at the graphic Power Session 3 brings us on page 21. Page 21 in Power Session 3. It talks about your sphere of influence. Notice it says these are all the people who know you, trust you, and may do business with you. My version of that is know you, like you, trust you, and are already predisposed to do business with you. You just have to remember what Erica reminded us and Donna plussed, and that is they have to remember what you do, right? That's where these loyalty programs come into play. Erica set a perfect stage for a conversation about a 36 touch loyalty program. Because if you're not reminding people every 10 days what you do and why you do it, they forget. Right? 36 touches over the course of a year, if you do the math, is a touch every 10 days. Now, I didn't say call the same people once every 10 days. That's a perfect way to, there's two words that come to mind if you were to do that: restraining and order, right? So be cautious around that. That's not an appropriate path forward. However, think about 36 touches in a year. If you did 24 of them as automated emails that are just now kind of touch, 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 real estate, my name, real estate, referrals, my name, real estate, referrals. Those systems are built in command for you. You can set it and forget it. And then you feather in maybe a quarterly mailer, and you feather in a quarterly text, and if you feather in a quarterly phone call, right? So now you've got 12 plus 24, you're already at 36, and that's before you've even touched on your events. So maybe if you don't love the 2 a month emails, maybe you back that down to 1 a month, and you feather in events every other month. Events typically give you 3 touches. There's the announcement of the event, there's the event itself, and there's the follow-up from the event. So minimally 3 opportunities to touch people. Well, if you did 1 every other month, that's another 18 touches. Do you see how easy it is? 36 sounds like so much. But when you just break it down and say, I need to communicate with my database anyway. So once every 90 days to give them a call to see how they're doing. Once every 90 days on the second month or an off month from a call to shoot them a text to say, hey, how's it going? Was thinking about you, wanted to just see if you wanted to meet for coffee or wanted to see how things were going, or hey, you know, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl or whatever. I mean, it's just outreach. And then that third month, have something go out in the mail. We haven't even touched on any kind of social media campaigns you're doing, right? Because my opinion is that the 36 touch program should be exclusive of your social media. Your social media lays on top of or foundationally below your 36 touch, right? You have a social media campaign going on and you have a 36 touch program going on. Both of those are going on simultaneously. One is not necessarily part of the other. Somebody talked to me about a 36 touch program. And so if there's somebody on the call who has one that runs, talk to me about what the responses are and how you go about making sure that you're keeping up with the systems. How much of it do you automate? And someone who doesn't have one going on, talk to me about what that looks like. Talk to me about, does it seem like crazy hard? Does it seem like it's so much or too much? Tell me what you're thinking about 36 touch. Carly.
I'll chime in for someone who I don't know if it's in a sense if I work with a lot of investors and a lot of them are repeat clients, so I'm constantly pretty much always in communication with them, like weekly or bi-weekly. So because that's more of my client base, however, once I do get more into the residential side, which I didn't do at my previous broker because it was an investment brokerage and it was very small. So to get listings, it was kind of impossible because people didn't know the brand. So now that I'm over at Keller Williams, my goal is obviously listing. So I think once I get a little situated and learn the systems and everything, I have a few listings going on right now. So once I have everything organized, I think utilizing this will definitely be important, but it definitely seems a little overwhelming, especially knowing that, you know, I have whatever 2,100 contacts and I have 2,800 friends on Facebook. Like, it sounds a little overwhelming to try to quote unquote touch everyone. That just sounds like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, so
that's my thought.
Here's what's fun about that, right? Because the first of all, if you remember from the MREA, this whole idea of growing and scaling a real estate business, it's a numbers game. And so you just have to learn how to tame the numbers. And what I would suggest is you again, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so what does it look like for you to take, if there's 2,100 people as contacts, my litmus test for my Met database is who, if I called them and said, hey, it's Rick and nothing else, not hi, it's Rick Scott, or not hi, it's Rick Scott from Keller Williams Realty. If I just called and said, hey, it's Rick, how many of them have me in their phone and would know who it is? How many of them know my voice? How many of them would answer because, oh, Rick is calling and so I always take his calls? That's where you want to start, right? That you want to start with that database. And then go to the next tier. So maybe that's 100 or 200 of those 2,000 people. And then the next tier is who, if I called and said, hi, this is Rick Scott, would remember who that was. Maybe they don't exactly know why they remember me. Or if I called and said, hi, this is Rick Scott with Keller Williams, would automatically know who that is, right? And that's another couple, because I guarantee you, once you start to get into the thousands in terms of contacts, there are people who don't know you from Adam. They're in your phone, they're in your contacts, they don't know who you are. Right. And so scaling it down and saying, I'm going to focus on this number of people, 200, 400, 500 people, and get them under control and let the other people kind of do what they're going to do. And then once you have that under control, then go to the next tier of people and start pulling people in towards you. Now you can start building that. However, focus on who you're going to focus on first, if that helps.
Yeah,
All right.
that's definitely more, that helped.
And the same thing with the Facebook friends, right? Who on the Facebook friends list are also in your phone already, right? So cross-reference that list. Who know me from just kind of an online presence? You have to do something a little different to move them offline, right? That might not necessarily be the 36 touch right away. You may have some steps ahead of you to move people then into your database and into your 36 touch, right? It's all about kind of figuring out. I had somebody who came to me one time and said, you know, Rick, everything you're talking about is, you know, I understand it. However, I have over 10,000 people in my database, and I'm just, you know, I think it's so unreasonable that you would expect me to. And I said, okay, well, that's awesome. So I wondered, could we do a test? Could you open your database? I'm just going to kind of spin the wheel through your database. I'm going to pick 5 people out of your database. And I want you to answer a question. If I called them and said, hi, I'm calling on behalf of Maria, would they know who I was calling about? Could you tell me who they were? Could you tell me where you met them? Well, yes, I have all notes in my database. Okay, well, that's awesome. However, how are you utilizing it? What's the follow-up? Because here's what's real. A big bucket of names, we used to have a name for that. It's called the phone book, right? It was what you got to sit on as a kid if you weren't quite tall enough to sit at the table. There were other uses as well, but it was just called the phone book. So make sure that you're really getting clarity around what the numbers say and how many are really a Met database. Be honest with yourself about those, and then focus on getting those where they need to be in a 36 touch and get that cranking. Then worry about everybody else. Okay, dokie, schmucky. Page 21. Page 21 in para session 3, if you look at this graphic, I'm sorry, Brett, did you have a question? You unmuted it and I didn't call on you.
Oh, no, I didn't have a question. I mean, I'm just doing a job tomorrow. I'm looking at the call sheet. I'm a makeup artist by day and by whatever. And I'm working with there's 29 people on the job tomorrow and I know 2. So that's 27 people I do not know. So anyway, you were just making my wheels spin.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're thinking about
the sheet right here. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's fun and easy to look at the people that you see that you do know. And it's sometimes more of a challenge to look at the other 27 and say, okay, how am I going to walk away from that experience tomorrow? Adding those people into my database, or adding 5 of those 27 into my database. Like, what's the strategy?
I have no problem with strangers because I work with strangers. I've flown halfway around the world to work with 15 people I didn't even know. So I have no problem with strangers.
Brilliant. I love it. Right. So, and remember, always make the target you obtaining contact information, right? I always get in trouble when I say this. However, to me, I don't even have business cards anymore because I think they're a waste of time, money, and paper. I'm not sure why everyone is always so concerned about having business cards to give out. Do you really think that A, people keep them, or B, that they know where to find them if they do keep them? having
Can't
your
you have like a
card-
virtual card or something that they can, haven't I seen cards before that have like the QR code and then they could scan it into their phone or something?
Yeah, sure. There's lots of different versions of that, right? Virtual
Yeah.
cards, e-cards, all that kind of stuff. But here's the point. If it's not, the only reason to give your contact information is to get theirs in return. Because if what you do is just pass out your information, whether that's virtually or in a business card, if it's a fancy business card or a flyer or whatever, again, you're ceding control of the relationship. It's now up to somebody else to call you. Well, I gave them my business card. And like, what's your point?
I usually just hand the person my phone and have them put their information in my phone.
Brilliant. If that works, keep doing it,
It works.
right?
Yeah,
The other way you can get them in your phone, right? The KW consumer app inside of Command, right? You just simply ask, I say, hey, Donna, you know what? This is so great. I have a tool that would be awesome for you. Just give me your telephone number. And oh, by the way, I'm not sure I know your last name. Give me those two things. I'll put you in the phone and zoop, you send off that whatever, it comes as a link or an app or whatever, and they go ahead and download that, and now you have their information. Utilize our tools to help you capture their info. But I want that to be really clear to everybody. You just going and passing business cards around, that's not lead generation. That's not growing your database. You might as well give them to a pilot and have them fly over a neighborhood and drop them from the sky and hope that someone picks it up and says, oh, how lucky. Look what fell from the sky. I just happened to need a real estate agent today. That was good timing. Right? And it's always so funny to me when people either transition into our company from another company or are brand new to our organization after getting their license. One of the first questions they ask is, where do I get my business cards? I don't understand that question. My first question would be, how do I list a property today? Like, where do I need, who do I go to tell me how to list a property today? Here's the issue. Sometimes people think that without a business card or without all the stuff, you can't practice real estate. Trust me, it's not true. I took my first listing in the first couple of weeks after I was licensed, and I took most of the listing on a napkin until I could figure out how to do the, and I'm not kidding about that. I brought a napkin back to the brokerage and said to the guy in charge, hey, you know what? I needed to list a property. I didn't really know what forms to use. So I have all the data here on a napkin. We both signed it. I know it's not really legally binding. However, how do I translate all this information into a listing agreement so I can get that listing agreement back to that client? Like, you want to list your house? Okay, I don't have anything but this napkin. Let's just figure it out. By the way, that client, when I went back with the napkin and the actual documentation after someone showed me how to use the documents, just re-signed the listing document and I got to get rid of the napkin. But the first listing I ever took was on a napkin. That's a true story. Right? Nobody told me I couldn't take a listing on a napkin. So I just went and took a listing on a napkin. What I knew is I had a seller in front of me who was hot to trot to get their house on the market. And I thought, all right, well, don't want to let this fire die down. Let's just go and do it. Right? So be careful that you don't let ego or judgment or any of that, oh, I'm doing it wrong. That's all right. As long as it gets the job done, then we'll go and fix it on the back end, right? I wasn't afraid that it made me look stupid. I think my children would prefer if I cared more about what people thought about me. And yet, it didn't matter to me if that particular client said, man, oh man, you don't even have a valid form. You know why he moved forward? He said to me when I came back, he said, you know what, I just want to let you know that the reason I signed your napkin is because I really liked your attitude, your passion, and your ability to just kind of want to go and get it done. Okay. Thanks for noticing. I'm taking my napkins and I'm going to your neighbors now. So there's a question for you, right? If push came to shove and you had a seller who was hot to trot to get on the market, would you take a listing on a napkin? The good news is nowadays you could just text the office and say, hey, email me a form and we'll just do it online, right? Just Docusign that puppy. But back in 1937, when I was taking my first listing, napkins is what I had. So that's what I used. Page 21, we're still on page 21, right? That sphere graphic, I want you to really take a close look at it. Notice you are in the middle, and then you have all of the people who are closest to you, and then you have a circle of people who are less close to you. But I want you to follow the path that leads to your insurance agent in the upper right-hand corner. You see how that path goes from you through your spouse to the insurance agent that you both use? You see that? The importance of what I'm looking to point out to you is my relationship with that insurance agent is not just because I'm interested in having the insurance agent, when they need to buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate, call me. It's the 5 people that insurance agent knows that I'm after. I'm looking to utilize the relationship with the insurance agent, maximize that relationship, and also reach through that relationship to the 5 most important people in that person's world. Right? That's when the term syndication, for how things kind of populate across the World Wide Web, across the internet, right? Syndication is just that kind of replication of data from here. It's like a big spider web. That's how you should envision building your database. Who do I know that if I reach up over here and then reach through them, who do they know that I should know? Because you never know. One of the people that your insurance agent knows could be a builder on the verge that just bought 100 acres of property in someplaceville that's going to offer 4,000 condos, and they need representation. Want to know an interesting story about prospecting and about hitting your goals, hitting your targets? We were in Bold, which Bold, for those of you who do not know, is a coaching and training program that we will bring back to you in 2022. We are just looking for Bold in person. We had since the pandemic, we held one Bold digitally, and the feedback was just less powerful than when we hold Bold in person. And so we're now to a point where we're getting back to our in-person stuff. So we're looking at bringing a Bold coach here for you. It's a 7-week program. We spend a day in the market center with a Bold coach, and then you have homework during the week. And part of the Bold standard is to contact 100 people each week, right? For those of you who are Bold graduates, 100 a week. And the very first Bold that we ever did back in 2009, I think it was, no, that's a lie. 2000 and maybe 15 or 16, I think was the very first year Bold was off. No, that's a lie too. I think it was 2009. I think I'm right about 2009. 2009, I think, is when Bold started, because it was in response to the shifting market, right? So Diana brought us Bold to help us through that shifted market, and so there was an agent in the Trumbull Keller Williams office who told me this story, and she said, when I was in that first Bold with you, our numbers were 100 a week, and that first week I really struggled to hit 100. And I always coach people to say, you know what, if you're going to take Bold, make sure you hit that 100 the first week, because if you don't hit it the first week, you are like 95% more likely to repeat not hitting the 100 in weeks 2 through 7 than if you prove it to yourself that it is doable and easier than you thought it was the first week. You are like 99% certain to go and hit the 100 every additional week. So that first week is a real important determining factor. Anyway, she said to me, so I was talking with my husband about this, and I struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled, and I got all the way up to 98. Like the night before we were to go back to Bold and report our numbers in. And I said to my husband, this is her telling me, I said to my husband, you know what? I have killed myself this week to get to 98. I am calling it a week. And he said to her, really? You're like 2 more contacts. Open your database and spin the wheel and just die. They were having this conversation at like 9:30 that night. So she said, you know what, whatever, why do I even talk to you? Right, you know the way most spouses talk to each other. Why did I even say that to you? And she woke up the next morning and thought, you know what? I think I probably owe you an apology because I think you're right. Bold starts at 8:30. I have to drive from here to there. I'm going to do what you said. I'm going to open my database, spin the wheel. I'm going to pick 2 people. I'm really going to pick 5 people because if I pick 5, I'm more likely to get 2 on the line, right? I'm going to pick 5. I know it's early. However, early is good because people are at least home. They haven't started work yet. And in her drive from Trumbull to, we were doing Bold in Rye, New York at that moment in time. So she had a nice, 40, 50-minute drive. She made her 5 calls and she got her additional 2 people. And number 99, here is the point. Number 99, and I'm not making this up, was a builder that she knew from her early days in real estate. This is somebody who was licensed probably for 15 or 16 years, who she hadn't talked to and she hadn't communicated with in a really long time. She called just to say, hey, how's it going? Just wanted to see how things were in your business. And he said, wow, it's so crazy that you're calling me this morning. Things are actually awesome. I just signed documentation for my loan to begin breaking ground on my 400-unit condo complex in whatever town. Are you interested in pitching to list those properties? 400 condo units. Because she didn't stop at 98. She pushed through and decided to just hit that 100. Right? So what's the lesson there?
Never give up.
Yeah, you got to just keep pushing. Like run through the finish line. Don't just run up to it and say, oh, look, there it is. Whew.
Like in the story with the gold mine.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Right? And Donna says the universe will conspire in your favor. Yeah, that is just so true. Right? She got up that morning and what she said to the universe was, you know what? I'm not a quitter. You know what? I set a goal, I'm going to hit it. You know what? I'm not going to give myself a pass. You know what? I'm going to show up at this class. I know I have 15 years of real estate behind me. I know I'm experienced. I know I make good money. I'm going to show up at this class and I'm going to show up having done the work they asked me to do because there's a reason they asked me to do this work. And guess what? Number 99 changed her world forever, changed her trajectory. Because all of a sudden what she knew is the very next person I communicate with could have a 400-unit condo complex to give me. Is that how you're viewing getting through your database? Is that how you're viewing conversations that you have? Or are you allowing them to, in your head, to be this big scary monster with teeth and fangs and horns? Are you horribilizing? I want you to write down that word. It's an important word, right? Are you horribilizing lead generation for yourself? I find a lot of people don't actually dive into lead generation because they've built it into this horrible, terrible activity in their minds. It's actually a whole lot of fun. You just get to spend 2 hours talking to people, seeing how they are, answering how you are, giving them some tidbits about the market, wishing them happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy whatever, inviting them to cool stuff. I can't think of a cooler way to spend 2 hours, right? And oh, by the way, when you follow it up with a business ask, it's lead generation.
Rick?
Yes, sir. All right.
Yes, what is the average time you would spend speaking to each contact?
Yeah, so great question. And I think the answer to that is it depends. It depends on, like, consistency in lead generation allows for shorter periods of time on the phone, right? If you're speaking to people relatively consistently, well, you just spoke to somebody 60 or 75, maybe 90 days ago, right? There's less to catch up on. And so now you're more focused in on, hey, how are you? And the purpose for my call is. The very first time you go through it, for those of you who've never been through a database before, your first time, what I encourage you to do is just make it about, hey, how you doing? Just make it a care call. Sometimes it wraps around to business. Some agents use the strategy that when they're just doing care calls, if it wraps around to business, they actually stop that conversation to say, you know what, I so appreciate you asking. Let's do this. Let me call you next week and we'll have that conversation around business. Unless they say, hey, you know what, I need to list my house tomorrow because I'm struggling. But there's a version of that says, you know what, it's all fine, but you know what, I really called to focus in on you and your family today. And then call back and follow up with the business. It sends a message. So Jorge, the answer is that first time through, or if you're an experienced agent and you haven't been through your entire database in a while, well, those conversations may be a little bit longer. You may have more interaction around the catch up on that, right? But then once you set consistency in place and you're talking to them once every 90 days, minimally, there's simply less to say. You get more on point. You're using scripts to help you through. You're working with either seasonal conversations or conversations around certain events or certain holidays, things like that. And so it's just kind of more on point. It becomes more of a, hey, just checking in, wanted to make sure you remembered this. Hey, just checking in, wanted to invite you to that. Hey, just checking in. I drove through your neighborhood and I saw I saw that your son is graduating next month. I wanted to just call and say congratulations. So they get shorter. What else? Tony, then John, then Anna.
I just wanted to make sure I heard your number correctly. You were talking about bold. Did you say that you had to make 100 contacts a week?
100 contacts a week is the bold standard, yes.
Meaning speaking to 100 people a week?
Speaking to 100 people a week about real estate. That's the bold standard.
Okay.
Yeah. John Mendes.
Something I found kind of difficult is the database call, because I'm also a high I, so it's like I naturally tend to want to have conversations, and especially when it's a lot more difficult when I'm calling people that I'm like actually friends with. That's like the most, like that's when it's the hardest for me, like to try to get off the phone and you get where I'm getting at with this.
I do. Yes, you're a chatty Cathy, right? And it's ultimately it's one of the things that's really attractive about you, and at the same time, it can work against you from a business lead generation kind of managing your time perspective. That's what you're saying, yes? And so maybe you wouldn't call yourself chatty Cathy, but you know. So the idea of one of the things that Bogdan remembers my I'm going through a tunnel thing. You can explain that in a second, Bogdan. So one of the strategies that I have always used, I do not have that issue, right? Because I don't possess that gift of gab in personal settings, right? And so for me, when I was calling people that I definitely knew, so when I was really calling the tight database, and I thought that might be one of those issues that I would have where people would want to talk a little bit longer. One of the strategies that I used, again, and this works better if you are consistent, because it doesn't feel like you're calling them after a year and a half saying, hey, you know what, I don't really want to talk to you. But when you're in constant communication, what I used to start with is, hey, Donna, it's Rick Scott, how are you? And Donna would say, oh, I'm great. Say, excellent, excellent, excellent. Hey, you know what, I want to just check in. However, before I do that, I had a quick business ask of you. Is it all right? Right? I would just preface by saying, this is just a quick business call. It's a quick business ask. And I would ask the business question. She'd answer it. I'd be like, thank you so much. You know what? I can't wait for another opportunity to invite you to my next cool event. You know, watch for that next week. Have an awesome day today. And so I would just set it up a little bit. I would structure the conversation a little bit more from a business perspective, so people understood that I was at work. Right? I wasn't just calling a chat. What else, Bogdan? What's the tunnel?
No, I wanted to add that if you're familiar with the RPM by that Tony Robbins uses.
Yeah, so, talk about it.
You know, you want to set, you know, what results you want to have, the purpose of your call, and then the massive action plans.
There you go.
So if you know, call with that in mind, you know when you need to stop. You don't have to go through BS.
Yeah. I love that comment. You don't necessarily have to go through the BS at the end, right? Because sometimes it turns into not a productive conversation, right? Because you're not skilled enough to know that it's okay to end the call, right? And sometimes it's okay to just end the call.
And there's plenty of training on YouTube about it.
And so what Bogdan's saying is just have structure. Know what the purpose of the call is. Just have structure, and then work inside of that structure. Anna, I think you were next.
What helps me is when I practice in the morning, and then I'm jumping on a call. It's definitely like set up the tone that, and you know, you don't need to have a lot of words. You don't need to, like, you know, it just goes so with like light flow. And I'm so fascinated with the script practice. I even reach out to Chris Hurley, and I actually hired him as my coach to script practice. So I'm going to the next level because it's just blow mind, and it's definitely changed everything. I think that's what since my career from 2015, nobody told me about script practice. It's like a script practice, like something like you know, everybody's thinking. And since I joined KW, it's just changed all perspective. And like today, I'm practicing every day, even on Saturday and Sunday. And on top of that, like I'm hired coach. That's how I am, you know, dedicated my time to that. Because yesterday, I had an elevator speech with one guy. I put one apartment on the market in the process. And I just came in an elevator, and the guy started talking to me, and he asked me a question like, what are you doing? Are you a neighbor? I said, no, I'm a real estate agent. And he kept going the conversation, and I didn't talk too much. But he, at the end, when we went in the lobby, he asked me for my business card. He asked me for if I have builders, if I have guys who recommend, and he said that, yeah, I will reach you out. So, and again, it just practice gives a lot of confidence.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Donna Gilbert, bring us home on this topic. Go ahead.
So I'm proud of you, Anna. I know I've seen you on the script practice every day.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you.
And John too. Yay. So, and so back to the point about showing up, wanting your clientele, your friends, family, your sphere to see you as a real estate agent in this business. So when you're on the phone with them and it's a business call, specifically, it's going to be a business call, you have to show up as a real estate agent. You have to believe it. And like Rick said, there's nothing wrong with saying, so this is a quick business call. This is a quick business call, that you can say those words and then do whatever you need to do and then move on. Because remember, they know that you are a real estate agent Now they see you as working. We'll do the hangout time another time, but right now I'm going to show up as a real estate agent.
Yeah. This is a perfect opportunity for me to say what I'm about to say for the first time. However, it's the first of many, many, many times you're going to hear me say this over the course of the next couple of weeks. You are always modeling behavior. And I want you to be really, really clear about what I mean by that. Many of you behave a certain way because that's what you think clients or prospective clients are looking for from you, when really what they're looking for is for you to show up the way Donna just described. Show up as your business self. You want people to remember you as a real estate business professional? Well, you have to show up that way and model that behavior for them. One of the best ways I know how to do that is to call people and talk about real estate, right? Call people and offer opportunities via real estate. Call people and remind people about events that are going on connected to your real estate business, right? So you're always modeling behavior. If you're always modeling the behavior of Tommy's mom, or you're always modeling the behavior of somebody who just cares, right? Not that care calls aren't important, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're not wrapped in some version of follow-up that becomes business, well, then you're a shoulder to cry on, and you're building a friendship, but you're not necessarily building a relationship that may turn into real estate opportunity. And I don't say that from an opportunistic perspective. I'm not discounting relationships at the expense of business or vice versa. I'm saying both are important, right? You just have to know what the goal is. There are times where care calls, like remember in the beginning, the first couple of months of the pandemic, all we were doing was making care calls. It wasn't about, hey, do you have a house to sell? It was about, how are you? How is your health? How are you protecting your family? How are you surviving in like our new bizarro world, right? What's your experience on Zoom been? Which member of the Brady Bunch are you when you get together with your family or your friends, right? I'm Marsha, I'm Cindy, I'm Ambi Davis, is Alice, right? That's the middle ones. That's always the great one when you're Ambi Davis, is Alice. Come on, Brady Bunch. All right. Some of you get it, some of you don't. Clearly, I'm older than many of you. To be fair, I only saw the Brady Bunch in reruns because I'm not old enough to have it be first run. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And yet, right, so you get my point. You're always modeling behavior. Write that down, because guess what? I'm going to say it over and over and over and over again and give you examples of how sometimes you're modeling behavior that you think is the right way to behave. It's kind of like when you choose not to be aggressive, right? You should write down that word, because that's one of my favorite words, is aggressive. And some of you live in fear of that word because you think aggressive means rude and obnoxious. I'm never rude and obnoxious. Well, that's probably a lie. I strive to hardly ever be rude and obnoxious, right? In both my business and my life. I don't know that I always achieve that goal, right? However, the point I'm making is being aggressive on behalf of someone and their goals. That's why you get hired. That's why someone says yes to you and no to everybody else. Remember, you're always modeling behavior. So when you're taking a back seat saying, "Oh, I don't know how aggressive I want to be about closing for that appointment or challenging that price on the listing side," you're sending a message. You're sending a message to someone that you want to hire you to get the job done, but the message you're sending is, I'm kind of a wuss. And if I'm showing up as a wuss to try and get your business, I'm likely going to show up as a wuss in the negotiation process when you're either buying or selling one of the largest assets that will enter your life. Trust me, no one wants to hire the wuss. So you've got to take a different angle on that. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Am I making sense? You get it? You're always modeling behavior. Recognize what behavior you're actually modeling. If I were you, starting tonight, whenever you're doing something in your real estate business, I would ask myself the question, what behavior am I modeling right now? When you make a phone call and have a phone call with somebody, hang up the phone and ask yourself that question. Do the exercise. What behavior did I just model for that particular person? Make sure it's the behavior that allows you to take the next step. Make sure it's the behavior of achievers. Make sure it's the behavior of people seeing you as someone they want to be in business with, not anything else. John, go ahead.
I'm gonna say sometimes I have a rude way of caring more on that person's behalf than that person does for themselves. And sometimes I'm not the best at articulating that. So I come up very mean, and I tend to be sometimes very straightforward, and people confuse that with being like rude or whatever. And I tend to be, pretty blunt. I don't tend to mean to be rude. I'm not intentionally trying to hurt somebody's feeling, but it's like, if you're someone that I care about and you tell me a goal that you have, even if you don't ask me to hold you accountable, I'm going to want to hold you accountable. And so when you're not doing the goal that you set out to be, I can get a little passionate, and it's like, what are you doing? Come on. Like, we got to get this together.
So here's what I would suggest. Just simply, if you preface any of those conversations with a permission, ask, right? Before I got on the phone with you, I was on the phone with somebody, and I said halfway through the conversation I was having, I'm pretty certain that you and I have a relationship, whereas I don't have to ask this question. However, just to be certain, knowing what I was about to say, just to be certain, I wanted to check in. And I said, before we go any further, do I have your permission to be really direct and honest with you? And they said, yeah, of course. Okay, great. And then I was. Right. I understand the where that comes from, right? It's the world I live in is direct and objective, and as long as you ask permission up front, there's also an expectation setting conversation you can have with people in your life, with potential clients. So John, as we set out on this journey together, I'm curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being kind of like right between the eyes and 10 being wrapped in lots of pillows, with important information, how direct and honest would you like for me to be? And then John just gets to answer the question. If he's shoot me between the eyes, right? And I've already kind of assessed the person across from me. So, I know whether or not this person is going to take things personally or not, just based on the way they present. And so if John is one of those people, he's not, by the way, but if he were one of those people and he said, oh, definitely like a 2 or 3, I would say to him, well, a 2 or a 3 is me being pretty direct. And sometimes people tend to take those kinds of things personally. Do you think that might be an issue? Again, if we have important things to talk about throughout our transaction, like the heavy duty stuff. And then maybe John says, oh, well, maybe more like a 5. Okay, so now what I'm hearing is, yeah, it's really more like a 7 or an 8. So I have to take a different approach with that person than somebody who really is a 1 or a 2. I'll give you an example. A buyer who's really more of a 1 or a 2 in terms of being direct and open and honest, when they lose a house, I get to call John and say, hey, John, it's Rick. Bad news. They went in a different direction, right? As you know, there were 10 different offers. They went in a different direction. I asked if there were anything you could do at this moment to create a different result. And I was told that they've really made their mind up and have gone ahead and signed that contract. I'm curious. We have 2 paths forward. We can either go and present something bigger and better anyway, or we can move forward and find a different house? Which do you prefer? Versus someone who's more on the other spectrum, where I might have to go and say, hey, John, it's Rick. How's your day going? Yeah. Hey, do you remember what we talked about in terms of the market that we were getting involved in when we met for the first time a couple of weeks ago? And how crazy it is? And do you remember as we were writing this offer, we talked about how many other offers there were on the table? Well, unfortunately, the seller has made a decision. Again, it's nothing personal. They just made a simple business decision that they were going to choose a different offer. I did ask on your behalf to see if there was anything that we could do at this moment in time to have them come and choose your offer instead. And I was told that there was not, that they were really moving forward and signing the contract with another buyer, excuse me. And so I guess we have a decision to make, right? And again, I know how disappointing this is. And yet, here's the good news. The good news is there's one less property on the market. And we know exactly what we may need to do to win the next one. Does it make sense to go and start looking at another property? Or some version of that, right? But you see the difference. One of them was short and sweet. Hey, we lost, let's move on. And the other one was wrapped in some bubble wrap to kind of let them down easy. That expectation setting conversation can really be helpful to understand how people want to receive information. Okay, I have no idea why we're on this bunny trail. It's an important bunny trail, but we are definitely down a bunny trail. Jorge, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just thinking about everything that you've said, and perhaps you have mentioned some of it, but in my long list of contacts, I have many of them from college, people that I have not touched base with in years. We're talking about like 5-8 years ago. So how would you approach those people to say hello and to give them an update that that you are in real estate? So, but trying to make it a good transition, that conversation, it's not easy since you haven't talked to them. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And so my version of that would be utilize the time of year, right? And so my script might be, so if you were one of those people to me, my script might be something like this. Hey, Jorge, it's Rick. Scott from college, right? You may have to go through like all that for them to remember if it's been that long. How's it going? You may be wondering why I'm reaching out. You know what? I just set kind of a New Year's resolution that I felt like I wanted to kind of update a lot of the relationships that were really important to me from college and beyond. And
I like that.
You were one of the first people I thought of. And I wanted to just reach out and see how things were going. In that scenario, Jorge, my personal opinion is you don't bring up real estate. You're not calling to tell them about real estate. You're calling because you're interested in developing those relationships all over again. In the course of the conversation, because let's face it, if you haven't spoken to someone in 5 or 8 years,
yes,
you run out of things to say after a certain bit of time, right? Because there's not necessarily a relationship there as it was. And so when you say, well, how are things and what's going on in your life, you'll come from that perspective. They'll ask you what you're doing. And then there's certainly an opportunity to say, oh yeah, well, thanks for asking. I'm really excited. This is my script, especially when you're brand new in real estate. Yeah, I just opened a powerful real estate firm. I'm really excited to get started on that. And then let them ask you questions. And if they don't ask you questions, then move on from it and follow up later. So it doesn't feel like a false call saying, I'm calling you after 8 years because now I need people to do business with. Reason for the call, right? Because that feels insincere. And I will transparently tell you that I had that same issue. I had people from high school, right? I was 29, 28, and almost 29 when I got into the business. I was diving backwards into people from high school that I hadn't talked to in 10 years. And I had a couple of people say to me, you know what, it kind of feels icky. They didn't use icky, but it kind of feels icky that the only reason we're hearing from you is because now you're in real estate and like you want business from us. I had people say that to my face.
Oh,
You know why? Because that was the only reason I was reaching out to them.
and that's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Right? So what you need to do is you need to take a different approach. You need to take the approach of these people are important to me. I'd like for them to become important to me again. I'm interested in rekindling some of these relationships. And I'm going to do that. And if over time, those relationships become an opportunity for me to offer my services, that's awesome. But grow the relationship first.
Okay.
If that helps.
Absolutely. How would you handle, for example, I've noticed that several contacts, I still have the phone number, but when I check them through apps like WhatsApp, I see that those numbers belong to different people. How can you reach to those people who do not know you and that you do not even know, but you know that those numbers once existed, belong to someone else?
Yeah, Donna, do you have a thought on that? Oh, okay, sorry, you leaned forward. I thought you were going for your mute button. So are you saying that the phone number you have on file for them may not be their phone number anymore?
Some numbers I've realized through WhatsApp that belong to some other people. So I'm assuming they changed numbers, they lost it or whatnot. And I've been thinking, how can I reach to these people that I do not know? I do not even know them, but those numbers, you never know what could come out of this.
Yeah, so if what you're talking about is kind of just dialing cold, right? That's really what you're talking about. It's just kind of cold calling. You know, there are scripts for cold calling. What I'll say to you is, can something come out of it? Sure. For me personally, I've done cold calling and I've done warm calling, and everything that I had great success with was always from warm. And what that means is my database, open house follow-up, because I've met people. Expireds to me is also warm calling. Even though I don't know them, there's already a real estate connection there. For sale by owners, oh, that's warm, warm, warm. The cold calling is, there are definitely scripts for that. And we can sort of, I'll bring them up tomorrow because those are scripts I don't use very often. They're the real cold stuff. And so I'd rather grab some and bring them to you than just kind of push them off the top of my head. Are there things to say? Sure. I would spend less time on cold and more time on warm because you get better, faster results with the warm. Right? Again, remember, when you say yes to something, you also say no to something. So if you're saying yes to the cold stuff, you may be saying no to the warmer stuff where there's opportunity here in the warm stuff faster. So just it's the opportunity cost of saying yes to something that maybe doesn't bring you the results, right?
Thank you.
Sure. There was a hand. I don't remember whose it was. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna just give a little bit of advice. It's as simple as, hey, I was going through my phone and I seen that my contacts got erased. I was wondering if you can just remind me whose number is this, and just go, if you decide to call those numbers that got mixed up, just something as simple as that, and just go through them.
Yeah, that's a great little script if you're interested in finding out who they actually are. Love that. All right, so we've spent a whole lot of time on database and a whole lot of different versions of calling through your database and getting through your database and building the database and events for your database and all. There's a reason for that. Somebody tell me, either by unmuting or putting in the chat, what is the #1 source of seller business nationwide for most real estate agents?
Word of mouth.
Database, right? So database, that's why we have spent so much time on database. It's the #1 source of sellers. Now, let me ask this question. What is the #1 source of buyers for most real estate agents nationwide?
Database?
Yes, sir. It's database as well, right? So just in case you were curious as to why we spend so much time on database, encouraging you to build it and create a loyalty program with it and to host events for it and to make sure that you're in constant communication with that database. It is the #1 source of both buyers and sellers for most real estate agents across most of the country. That's where the business comes from. So don't hide from it. Lean into it, embrace it. If it scares you, great. You know what the definition of courage is? Feeling the fear and doing it anyway, right? So have courage and just lean into that database. I know a lot of real estate agents. I know a lot of real estate agents that make decent money who are terrified of their databases. What would they think of me? Well, it depends. It depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. What might they think of you if you call them every couple of weeks and say, I need business, can you give me business? Well, I might think something negative about you too if you did that to me. But that's not what we've talked about, right? What we've talked about is the exact opposite of that. Building community, creating and nurturing, maintaining relationships. So if the #1 source of business for buyers is your database, what's the #2 source of business for buyers?
Your database is fear.
So that's all. I'm gonna keep all that tucked into one source, John, and call that all database. So we're gonna keep that right up at #1.
Open house.
It's truly the #2. Say it again, Anna.
Open house.
Yes, open houses, right? Open houses, the #2 source of buyer business for most real estate agents across most of the United States. So would it be helpful if we spent a little time on open houses? Awesome. Answer a couple of questions for me first. What are the benefits of hosting an open house? Clearly, we just gave you one of them, right? What do you find there? You find
Buyers.
you find buyers.
Buyers.
You can also find sellers.
Who else do you find though, right? Who else, John?
Sellers.
Sellers, absolutely. Who else? I love these people the most.
Sellers
Okay.
who needs to become buyers.
Yeah, like
Or
the
something like that.
twofer. You can find the twofer, the sellers, the buyers who also have something to sell. What else do you find?
Dead bodies in the basement.
Bodies in the basement. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Nosy neighbors.
Right? Nosy neighbors, we have a name for them in real estate, right? Nosy neighbors are what 2-word term in real estate?
Free leads.
Oh, well, that's a good term. Get more specific though.
Future clients.
Yeah, future clients, potential sellers. Right? The nosy neighbor, I loved when sellers would say to me, oh, open houses. Do we really have to have an open house? All we have are those nosy neighbors. My objection handler for that was, oh yeah, nosy neighbors is actually one of my strategies. It's in my plan. Invite all the nosy neighbors. Because guess what? Those nosy neighbors, they know people who want to live near them. We're gonna employ them and we're gonna hire them like an army of salespeople and send them out talking about your house. As a matter of fact, we want them so badly. Our open house that we're going to host from 1 to 3, we're actually going to start at 12:30 and have some snacks and have a neighbor only 30-minute preview session. And we're going to push that out to all the neighbors to say, guess what? Just for you, nobody else. If you don't live in the neighborhood, you don't get the snacks and you don't get the free preview. So 12:30 to 1, that's your opportunity. Come on by. We'd love to see you. Curious what the Smiths did with their kitchen? Always wonder what the addition that you saw go up on the outside looks like from the inside? Come on down. Right?
I'm sorry, Rick, how do you tell the neighbors? How do you pre-tell the neighbors all that?
Yeah, you call them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good,
You do one of a couple of things. You either call them, or you walk the neighborhood and door knock, or you send out a postcard. If you send out a postcard, I would also encourage either the call or the door knock to follow up the postcard, right? You get better results than just a mailing. But yeah, so again, strategically, nosy neighbors, I wasn't kidding, that wasn't a joke. Nosy neighbors were part of the strategy. I wanted as many nosy neighbors in that house as possible, answering their questions, getting them excited about the house for two reasons. A, free publicity, because now we send them out and they go talk about the house. And B, potential sellers. I want them to be, remember, you're always modeling behavior. And so if I'm going to be communicating with the nosy neighbors who are now potential sellers, I'm showing them what I do to get a home sold. I'm showing them how I create opportunity for a seller. I'm showing them technique and experience. So they want to hire me when they're ready to go, because they want me to do that for them too. You're always modeling behavior. Marlene.
Yeah, how do you get a nosy neighbor telephone number?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so nowadays, the best way to do all that is to simply subscribe to a service that grabs you those numbers. Does it cost a little bit of money? Yes, but there are other free things out there. Go ahead, John and Donna.
Or join Jen Henry's Fun Hours on Wednesdays, and she can put a list for you.
Yeah, you
Free
do
of
need to be in productivity coaching.
Yeah, there's that,
Like the Market Center pays for one of those programs for all the productivity coaching clients. So Jen Henry can help you with that if you are a productivity coaching client. What else, Donna?
And another reason why you want to do some door knocking, get comfortable with door knocking around your open houses, is I have an opportunity to be face-to-face. I can't rely just on them coming to the open house. It's great if they do that, but now I have them face-to-face. I can get a lot more information. I can give them information about the open house, find out if they have any needs. I can also ask, so I send out, a newsletter every now and then. May I have your email address? I mean, there's more things you can do if you're standing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you should jot this down because it follows up what Donna just said. You are always, and I don't use that word very often. I don't use always, I don't use never very often, right? Because those are kind of absolutes and I'm not sure that life really works that way. However, you are always more powerful in person than you are either on the phone or digitally. You're always more powerful in person. Your presence is more powerful in person. So that opportunity to kind of knock and meet people. Who was that? Donna, maybe you'll remember. I think it was one of the very first listing agents that James interviewed in his 12 weeks of listings. She was from up in cold Canada someplace.
Irene, yeah.
Irene from
Toronto.
I can't think of what her last name is.
It starts with a K. It's pretty long.
Okay. Irene K. It's too long to remember.
So Irene from Toronto, and what was so impressive about her was she just went out and door knocked 12 months of the year. And in Toronto, it's freaking cold for 6 months of the year, right? And what was fascinating was she said, yeah, you know what? People were always impressed that I would like walk through the ice and the snow to come and meet them and to invite them to open houses and to announce the new listing I just took and whatnot. And guess what? She got points for that. And when someone was interested in figuring out who they were going to utilize, they remembered her because she showed that level of dedication. She was willing, remember I told you, successful people are willing to do things that other people are just simply not willing to do. She was willing to do that at a high level. Donna.
And the other interesting thing about Irene is that she is an MREA. I mean, runs $1 million team. So she's not just building a business. This is how she prospects. She is known for it. People are looking for us. And when is Irene coming through the neighborhood? So be known for that.
Yeah, what a great point, right? Because it's so easy to think, oh, you know what, I'm finally making money. I can stop doing that stuff. Yeah, no, right? Lead generation is lead generation is lead generation. And the stuff that you commit to for the long haul until you're ready to either have the business start to earn less money, or you choose to leverage that activity and have someone do that for you. You're going to use money to buy time back and have someone do that for you. So open houses, back to our good friends, open houses. Would it surprise you to know that there's kind of some math behind successful open houses and math behind the level you need to play at with open houses in order to earn the income that you desire from open houses as a main source, as a main pillar of leads in your business? Anybody know what that math is in terms of open houses per month? For you to really see consistent results at a high level, if open houses is going to be one of the main sources of business for your sales business. What does that look like?
2 every weekend.
Yeah, 2 every weekend, Stuart, is exactly right. It's 8 a month, which if you do the math is 100 a year. 100 open houses a year, if that's one of the paths that you're going to use to really dive into consistent leads. Now, I make that point to you simply because oftentimes people will come to me after 6 months or so in real estate and say, I just don't, I don't think I'm going to do open houses anymore. They just don't work. I say, well, talk to me about that. I'm curious, how many have you done in the last 6 months? Well, I've done at least 6. Okay. Well, in 6 months, if I told you that the math says, the business plan around success with open houses says that had you done maybe 44 more of them, you'd see the business that you expected from open houses, what would you say to that? Right? And some people say, I'm not willing to do that. Okay, well, if you're not willing to do that, then open houses probably shouldn't be one of the pillars that you've chosen to drive leads in your business. Because if you've chosen that, it's 100 a year. It's 2 a weekend. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean every weekend, because frankly, there's a system in place that says, late March, April, May, and early June, in the high season, you want to be out there even more than twice a weekend, in my humble opinion.
Rick, I
Yes.
had a listing a few years ago in North Stanford, and North Stanford had taken a hit. There were things the owners needed to do to the house, but they weren't going to, understandably, because there was a big hit on top. But they were good clients of mine, and I would do an open house for them every single week. And I ended up picking up quite a few buyers when you do that many. But what's interesting is a year and a half after having this house, finally, when it was getting towards the end, I get a call at the last minute and they said, we see this house. We're in New York. We see it, that there's always an open house, and we've never been able to make it. Can we go and see it? They made an offer then and there. They were the only people who showed up. And there were weeks where I didn't have anybody who showed up, but I still did another one the week after.
Yep.
And it ended up paying off because I got both sides.
Yeah, and what Lisa's talking about is consistency, right? She had a level of consistency around open houses every week, week after week. Now, this happened to be at the same house, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be at the same house. I encourage you to kind of move move it around if you have additional inventory, and we're going to talk about choosing an open house in just a second. Bogdan, what do you have?
I just wanted to remind them that you can market it until it goes on the contract. So if you have a binder, not a contract, you can still do open houses.
Yeah, right. So there's lots of different opportunities that you can continue to be aggressive with your inventory and continue to put yourself in the path of additional business. That's kind of I think the way I like to describe open houses. You're not necessarily hosting an open house. You're using that piece of inventory to put yourself in the path of additional business opportunities, because that's where the people are coming. So recognize that. Let's take a half a step back. There are opportunities that you have to double up, triple up, and quadruple up on the weekends. However, remember, there's also opportunities that are not weekend based, right? You have drive time open houses from 5 to 7 during on a Thursday night, where you just grab some pizza and anybody who's driving home from work has an opportunity to stop in and see your open house. I used to love doing when I had listings. A lot of my listing career was spent in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and it's a small town with 6 elementary schools. And so every listing I took was near one of the 6 elementary schools. The town wasn't that big. Why we had 6 elementary schools for such a small town is beyond me. And yet that's just the way it was done. And so what I used to do is I used to figure out what time the elementary school opened and kids needed to be there. And an hour and a half before then to a half hour after then, I would host an open house. Because I don't know about in the town you live in, but in the town I live in, nobody's kids take the bus. The buses drive around empty and everyone drives their kids to school. So I would capitalize on that opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to capture all this morning traffic with people driving their kids to school and host open houses from 8 until 10 or from 7:30 until 9:30 or whatever, right? So be careful that your mindset isn't just set on weekend open houses. And yet you do have opportunities, right? One of your team leaders used to be the buyer's agent on my sales team, right? When before Steve Scott was a team leader, he was a buyer's agent on my sales team. And in late March, April, May, and early June, his weekends were work with a buyer from 8 or 8:30 in the morning until about 11. And then from 11 to 1, and then 1:30 to 3:30, he'd host 2 open houses on that Saturday, and then work with another buyer in the afternoon, and sometimes a third buyer in the evening, depending on the light and whatnot, right? The closer to summer we got, the lighter it was outside. And then he'd do the same thing again on Sunday. So he still got to work with between 4 and 6 buyers on a weekend and host 4 open houses. And when he was doing it, he was hosting full 2-hour open houses. We're going to talk with you about the express open house, because I don't know about the rest of you, but that's like my new favorite. Why sit for 2 hours and twiddle your thumbs? Host an open house for 1 hour, book 6 10-minute slots, have them text you beforehand, fill up the slots 10 minutes at a time, bing, bam, boom, you've had 6 people through the property, and you're done. You could host 3 open houses in an afternoon if you so chose by doing things that way. So what is the point? There is no one right way to host and hold an open house. The other point is, be careful you don't get stuck in a mindset that says, I can't do that. Remember, can't equals won't. Do you know that phrase? Can't equals won't? Right? When you either mentally or verbally say, I can't do something, I want you to stop and remember that that's not really true. You have to change that word. What you really mean, what you're really saying is, I won't do that. And that's a choice. So then my question would be, well, why are you making that choice? right? Because we get to take 100% credit for all the awesome things in our life and 100% responsibility for all the things that we wish were different, right? So keep plugging forward on the open house idea. Lots of different ways to accomplish that. How are you getting your 100, right? What's your business plan for your 100 open houses? And maybe you say, you know what, 100 open houses, look, I go away for the month of August. Okay. Well, add a third one each week in April and May, and you've covered what you're not doing in August. Make sense? So if you have your own listing inventory, it's pretty clear that you can utilize your own listings to host open houses, right? If you don't have your own listing inventory, or you have limited listing inventory, or you just don't like your own inventory, what are your opportunities to host open houses?
The other agents in the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, you are 29 of 600 real estate agents in our brokerage. Somebody's got inventory that is interesting to you that you could host open houses on. So let's talk a little bit about how you're choosing those open houses. What are some of your criteria? Do you just kind of jump at any open house because someone needs some help because they're not around that weekend? Or do you have criteria? Right, I'm an investor. I buy real estate for a living as one of my other jobs, right? And so that company that I run, that my investment company that I run, that has criteria. I buy certain properties when they meet that criteria. And if they don't meet that criteria, I don't buy them, even if they look awesome. If they don't meet certain criteria, I push on from them. Do you have criteria around how you're choosing your open houses? Or are you being less strategic than perhaps you could be? What's some of your criteria? What do you use? I'm curious. Or if you've never hosted an open house, what criteria do you think you would use?
Location.
Location, John, talk about location.
I say, I mean, more so when you're starting out, you kind of like, at least what I'm doing is kind of like where I can. So I shadowed like 2 open houses so far. But it would be more ideal if I could spend time at an open house in like my own backyard, meaning Stanford. That way I could save a lot more time driving, which I could then use for, I don't know, potentially lead gen or anything else pretty much.
Yep. So location is crazy important, right? What
And
else,
also,
Brett?
I was gonna say, how long has it been on the market? Or if it's been sitting, or?
So perhaps days on market is one of those considerations that you have, right? How stale is this inventory, or would I like something a little fresher? What else?
Just to touch on like location again, just like John said, in your backyard, someplace that you know, you're familiar with the area. It gives conversation when you have your potential buyers come in at that open house, and you can explain like the different things around the neighborhood to them better because you're familiar with the territory.
Yeah, absolutely. That creates more confidence in your ability to speak to the visitors, right?
And your signs will stand out more. You know, you want a lot of exposure for your open house signs, so location is important.
Yeah, so part of your criteria, as Donna says, is maybe I need to host an open house someplace where I can really market that sucker based on my signs. Most of you who have taken this course before know that my opinion is sign it up, man. And what I mean by that is 8 to 10 open house signs. minimally 8 to 10 open house signs. Now I get that when you're the one who has to set them all up and it's pouring down rain or it's cold outside, that's less appealing. You also have the opportunity to pay someone to do that for you if you so chose, right? So you don't have to set your own signs up. The way that Steve used to get all those open houses in a weekend is he utilized some money to buy back some of his time so he could spend it with the buyers. So he would work with buyers right up until 10 minutes till 11 and then scoot over to the open house. But he paid somebody 25 or 30 bucks to go and set up all of his signs. And he paid that somebody another 25 or 30 bucks to go take those signs down at the end of that and set them up for his next one. And then take them down at the end so that he could go off with another buyer, right? Those are small numbers to pay for buying back time, knowing that the time you spend with each of those buyers may turn into a $12 or $15 or $20,000 paycheck. The time he spent at the open houses finding new appointments could turn into new listings, could turn into new buyer opportunities, right? Don't think that just because everybody else goes and sets up their signs for the 45 minutes before the open house, that's also something you have to do. There are different ways to run your business. Donna Gilbert.
And staying with location, make sure that this is a location, a neighborhood, an area that you actually want to have buyers in, you want to have listings in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell a story real quick that illustrates that. About 2 years ago or so, someone came to me and said, "Oh, Rick, I'm just so frustrated." And I said, "Well, tell me about that." And they said, "Well, I'm just not getting the traction I'm looking for. I keep having these buyers in Woodbury in like the high 2s, low 3s price range in Woodbury." I'm like, "Well," I said, "Well, Woodbury, that's kind of far from where you lived. What's bringing you to Woodbury?" And she said, "Well, all of my buyers, like my buyers all just want to be in Woodbury." I'm like, "Well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know that I've ever heard that issue before. I'm curious, where are you finding these buyers? Do you have a listing in Woodbury?" And she said, "No, I do not have a listing in Woodbury." And I said, "Well, where are the buyers coming from?" She said, "Well, one of the agents in the office who does have a listing in Woodbury for $319 had asked me to do an open house there, and I've done like 4 or 5 open houses there. And so okay, well, that's where the buyers are coming from, right? If you're uninterested in that price range in that area, well, stop hosting open houses there, because what's going to show up are potential listers in and around the Woodbury area, that neighborhood, and potential buyers who want to buy in Woodbury. That's why they're showing up to the open house, right? So remember, your strategic choices, the criteria you set, drive not just where you spend your time, but the type of business that will come your way. Which brings us to another criteria a piece of your criteria that hasn't been mentioned yet. I actually think John said it, but you have to say it again, John, because I think you said it under somebody.
Price range.
Yeah, price range. Are you interested in a certain price range? If you are, make sure that you're hosting open houses in and around that price range, right? Bracket that, set that as a target.
I had a quick question.
The other criteria that I would set for yourself is, what's the market doing in that town and in that price range, right? If you have a certain price range that you're interested in and a certain town you're interested in, do the market research on it. Is there inventory? Is it moving? Are there opportunities for buyers to come and buy? If they don't buy that house, is there anything else to sell them? Know what's going on so that you can make valid choices. I can remember when I was new in the business, there was somebody who started with me, and all they wanted to do, I thought it was weird. All they wanted to do was host open houses in the $1 million+ price range in Reading. Now, I don't know if many of you know a lot about the Reading market now, and it hasn't changed all that much from 20 years ago when I'm talking about, right, this moment in time. $1 million in Reading 20 years ago was a whole lot of money in Reading. And Reading is just one of those towns where it's a beautiful town. There's has so much to offer. It just doesn't have kind of a town, and it doesn't have, it's missing a couple of things that make it a very rural choice for people. And the listings that I used to take there, open houses there were just a drag, right? Driving traffic there for me was proved difficult. And I was good at driving traffic to open houses. So what's my point? My point was, this person who started with me had it in their head that if they hosted open houses in Reading in the $1 million plus range, they could have their $1 million business, which is what they wanted. They wanted the high-end $1 million business. And they were going someplace that they thought no one was going. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't just agents that weren't going there. It was buyers as well, right? So they had a problem. They spent all this time hoping against hope that someone unrepresented who wanted to live in Reading in that price range would show up. Now, for those of you who know me, you know that hope is not a strategy. Write that down. Hope is not a strategy. And that strategy that person utilized, to me, was kind of like buying a lottery ticket. It was the same thing. Let's buy the lottery ticket and hope against hope that I don't have to go to work tomorrow because I'm going to hit it big. My open house strategy was, where is the market moving? Where's the most traffic? Where are there buyers? Where can I find inventory? Where are people going to drive past? Who can I drive there that will get me that one appointment I need from this open house? That was my strategy. And so I never did $1 million plus houses unless they were my own inventory and I had promised the seller that I would personally do it. That was the only time I sat in open houses in $1 million plus properties, right? Because I just found the traffic was lighter than in under $1 million properties, right? So those were my targets. What else? There was something else that someone wanted to say. I don't remember who it was. John, go ahead.
Question. It came to my idea that should we just look for open houses in the same way that we use our criteria for picking a farm?
Keep asking that question. What do you mean?
Like, so it's when you farm a place, it's like you go through the area. Is it house selling? Like, what's the turnover rate of how people selling their homes, the price point, the area? Kind of, I seen a similarity in terms of getting a criteria for your farm neighborhood and for your open houses.
Yeah, it can absolutely be very similar. Certainly the process, the strategic process that we're talking about, yes, is the same. You use the same strategic process. What you'll find is, in my world, there's a strategic process for everything, right? We're going to use the same strategic process to make sure that we close on expireds. We're going to use the same strategic process that says, that tells us where to hunt for sale by owners. There's a strategic process that underlies everything and a set of criteria that you need to utilize to determine whether or not it's worth your time to go down that path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the return is 0 or nothing, well, what's the point? That brings us to a phrase that often gets thrown around when it comes to those kinds of conversations. And that phrase is, well, something is better than nothing. And I'd like to caution you against that phrase. I'd like to caution you that sometimes nothing is actually better than something, because the nothing informs you about exactly what you may need to do from an activities perspective. Something sometimes tricks you, distracts you into thinking that you're doing the right things and you're not getting the results. So something is better than nothing. I would encourage that you do not utilize that as a strategy. I would encourage a more strategic approach. What is the something I'm saying yes to? And what's the expected return on that something? And perhaps the right answer to that something is no. Because when you say no to something, guess what? You have an opportunity to say yes to something else, and perhaps what you're now saying yes to brings you a better result, brings you a better return, brings you a faster result or a faster return. Make sense? Anything else that you can think of about open houses in terms of choosing them? Sometimes the question gets asked, well, how do I approach another agent about doing an open house on inventory that's not mine, that's theirs? And the answer to that is really quite simple. You go into the MLS, run the listing inventory for our market centers, decide based on your criteria which houses meet your criteria, look up who the listing agent is, and call, text, or email them. Right? If I choose to host an open house in a property that's listed by Donna Doyle, I'm just going to give Donna a call and say, hey, Donna, it's Rick. Curious about 123 Main Street. I'd love to host an open house there, either Saturday or Sunday this weekend. I wondered if that made sense for you and your sellers. And Donna's going to say one of three different things. She's either going to say, yes, that would be awesome. Let me see if I can set that up for you. Or she's going to say, you know what, this weekend's not going to work. It's actually the first weekend it's on the market and I'm actually hosting one there myself. However, perhaps we could do it another time. Or she'll say, great question, not sure, let me get back to you. Here's my thought. Regardless of what she says, it's all okay. Some people are going to say, yes, that makes good sense. Some people are going to say no. Some listing agents don't like to have other agents host their open houses. They like to do them themselves, even if that means a property doesn't get open housed. You just need to respect that all listing agents are different. It's why it's important that there are 600 of you, because it allows for like everybody to kind of do their thing and still have enough for everybody who wants to be doing something on a specific day to have something. If it's not your inventory, you may not always get what you want every single time. Just recognize that. And don't take it personally. Sometimes the answer is just no, and that's okay. Maybe if Donna says no about that one, I know she has a couple of other listings that might fit that criteria as well. And I say, so if not 123 Main Street, I was wondering about 456 Sycamore. So it's just a simple conversation. Some listing agents ask you to kind of go through their little boot camp, right? Some listing agents want to make sure that there's some experience there before they let you loose in an open house. And so if you're brand new and you've never hosted an open house, or you've never hosted an open house, so maybe what Donna says to me is, I would love to have you do that. I have a quick process that I'd like people to kind of go through. I'm hosting one there this weekend. If you can come and kind of just be with me for 30 minutes to kind of get to know the house, you and I can have a quick conversation. I can share with you kind of how my open houses get run. And if you're all good on that, then we can schedule you for the next weekend. Right, for inventory that's listed on my sales team that Debbie Orr still runs, there's a sheet that people follow. Right? There's instructions. Here's what you do beforehand. Here's what you do during. Here's what you do afterwards. Right? We give people those instructions, and we like people to follow those instructions, because we're still responsible to those sellers on the tail end, even if we're not hosting the open house specifically. Now, remember very clearly that when you host an open house in somebody else's listing, all the leads that come from that are yours. You're the one who's sitting there, unless you're being paid, right? If Donna says, I'll pay you $75 to sit at my open house for 2 hours, well, now I'm getting paid, and so the leads go to her. If I'm not getting paid to sit there, which, by the way, there's no reason to do that. Like there's no reason to be paid to sit for 2 hours at an open house. Just find an open house where you get to sit, because remember, you're there for an appointment. You're not there for $75. You're there for an appointment that can lead to a 10 or 12 or 15 or $20,000 paycheck. Right? Keep your priorities straight around what that looks like. Questions, comments, concerns about choosing and obtaining open houses? Holy Christmas, we're out of time already. Okay, John, last question and then we're done.
Real quick. So how does that conversation look if someone reaches out to you to host their open house and they engage in the conversation and that doesn't fit your criteria? How would you go about that?
So are you saying it's your listing inventory and someone's asking you?
No, let's say someone has their own listing but they can't do the open house for whatever reason that weekend, and they were like, hey John, can you actually help me out with this open house this weekend, but that didn't fit my criteria. How would I go about saying that no without, I guess, tarnishing that relationship? Or
Sure. Well, so my answer to that question is, A, do you have an open house that does fit your criteria, right, lined up? And if you don't, what criteria is missing from the open house you're being asked to open house? You may have an opportunity to say yes, even though it's not a perfect opportunity for you based on the criteria that you've set, if you haven't taken proactive steps to find a different house. Because an open house oftentimes will create some activity, even if it's not the exact activity you're looking for. Or if you're just simply not interested, you can just say, thank you so much, but you know what, I don't know that I can fit that in this weekend. Right? I'm a very busy realtor. And again, like we don't have to with each other, right? Part of the benefit of being a business family is that we can just talk to one another. Right? If I called you and said, hey, if you called me and said, hey, Rick, could you sit at an open house? Which one? And you say, oh, it's 123 Main Street. I might say to you, really, that one? I'd love to open house any other property of yours except that one. And here are the reasons why, right? It's okay, just talk to each other, right? John knows that house is a piece of crap. He's not foolish. And here's what's real. Sometimes the pieces of crap are the best places to host open houses. The biggest piece of crap I ever listed was on Fire Hill Road in Reading, right by the train tracks, for like $239 or something like that, which was an unheard of price in Reading. I got more leads, both buyer and seller, from that little piece of crap. When it finally went under agreement, I cried. Oh, I hope the deal falls apart and I can put it back on the market and host some more open houses and do some more marketing around this puppy, because it like made half of my year, all the business I got from it. But my point, John, is you don't, that doesn't have to be a heavy conversation. It can be a much lighter conversation. It can just, again, family just tells each other the truth, and we just talk. So you don't have to be fearful around someone saying, oh, well, I asked that Mendes kid about, hosting an open house. What a jerk he is. Right? That's not going to happen unless you behave like a jerk, right? I'm not sure you know how to do that. I don't know you well enough to know that yet, but we'll see. Maybe after Orlando, I'll know a little more. All right, guys, as always, it is a pleasure to spend time with you. I hope this was helpful. Tomorrow, we're going to finish open houses, dive into